Hello. So today we are going to talk about the past, right? We're going to talk about how do I let go of the past, forgiving ourselves, right? So before we even start that, I am going to ask you to please like, subscribe, and comment. And the comment that I would really like you to say is, or really like you to type in the comments is, I subscribed. And when you type I subscribed, I will personally reply to your message. All right, so let's get started. So let me just give you a little backstory. The reason why I decided to talk about this today, because I had something totally different planned, is because yesterday, September 10th, 2005, actually, my firstborn, my daughter, passed away, and she passed away from complications from leukemia. She was diagnosed when she was 14, and she passed away when she was 16. And so it has been 17 years, and yesterday was a different day for me. Normally, I am sad or trying to just get through the day or celebrating, maybe even talking about her or whatever. Every year is different. Not one year is the same. In the very beginning, we used to do, memorials and have fun with her friends and things of that nature. But as time went on, we stopped that. And so for me, yesterday, was different, and it was different on a really, really, really even keel, like a really good level, if I could say it that way. And the reason why is because that whole instance was devastating to me. It rocked my entire world, it rocked my family's world, everything. But it had me stuck for several years because I did not get past it. I couldn't get past it. I couldn't deal with it. There were just a lot of things that were going on. I hadn't cried in years, like so many things that I can go into for other days. Those are stories for other days. But what I had to do was I had to let go of the past, and not necessarily letting go of my daughter or our memories or the great things that happened, but I did have to let go of that story of her being sick, that story of her passing away from leukemia, the story of her getting leukemia, all of that. Those are the only things that I thought about. She lived 16 years. So there was definitely years and years and years that I literally had put away and was only concentrating on the sad and the guilt and the shame and the hurt and the devastation and just missing her. And so I had to have a couple of conversations yesterday as her mother. Believe it or not, I had to have a couple of conversations with family members that are there. They're at that place, right? They're at that place where they hate this day. They can't stand to deal with this day. They've got so many feelings and emotions around it, whether it be guilt or shame or whatever around it. And I had a couple of conversations gladly, honestly, gladly with family members about forgiving themselves for whatever it is that they thought that could have, should have happened before she passed away, blah, 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 whatever. Because one thing that I do know, as I've come into my own gifts and my own powers and things of that nature, one thing that I do know is that she would want us to be happy. She would not want us to be here on earth in our humanness, suffering because of her. I know that for a fact. And so for me, if there's anything that I'm going to do that I couldn't do while she was actually here, is to live. And it has taken me a very, very, very long time to get here. And so I'm going to take you through some steps to forgiveness, if you don't mind. because that is really what is needed for you to get to move on from the past. And honestly, forgiveness is, I think it holds like a large cup of things that we as humans hold on to, and the stories that we tell and the things that we hold on to, whether it be something that happened in childhood or when you were younger or when you were in college or whatever the case may be, you know, a relationship, unfortunately a loss of life, whatever. But we cling to these things and we allow them to continue to be in our lives even after whatever the situation was took place. And I think that there is a process that some of us have to go through. Obviously, anyone that has had a important and a close-knit death in your family must go through the phases of grief. It's just how things go, right? But at some point, like for me, 10 years, years later, I still hadn't gotten past a certain point. Okay, so that meant that there was some work that I needed to do, right? And it was work that I wasn't really willing to do. But what happens is, and this is the problem, this is the issue, this is where the meat comes from, and this is where forgiveness comes in. The problem is that we continue to live, right? But we cease to be who we used to be. And in order for us to get to the new us, right? Because we can't go back, but we can move forward. And we can move forward in strength and in love and even in memory of that person, right? There's things that we can do. There's all kinds of things that we can do. But if we don't, we get stuck and we don't grow. And what we do kind of sort of is wherever it is that we are, we attract those things to us, right? So let's just use a relationship, for example. So someone cheated on you in your relationship, you were devastated. And so that from that point forward, every relationship that you get in, you think that that person is cheating on you. That person is not necessarily the person that you dated, right? They're two totally opposite people. But you could possibly have attracted someone who does the same thing because you haven't changed your behavior. You haven't changed your mindset. You haven't come to grips forgiving yourself, forgiving that person, or whatever the case may be, for whatever that situation was. And now you're moving into something else, thinking that it's going to be different, but you're actually attracting the same thing until you actually fix what it is that you actually have going on in your head and have going on in your heart. A lot of times the same things are going to come to you, or the same situations are going to happen within that relationship, whether it be a friendship, obviously we're talking about a relationship, or whatever the case may be. And so the first thing that I would say is separate what happened to what is happening. If that makes any sense. Separate what happened to what is happening, like currently in your life. And in order for you to do that, the best way that you could do that is through forgiveness, right? But we have to detach ourselves from the story that we're telling, because 9 times out of 10, that story is old. And even if the story is new, you definitely need to give yourself time to move through those emotions and things of that nature. But the best suggestion that I can give you is to see yourself, when you're capable, see yourself as God sees you. God sees you as perfect and whole and complete. And so when you forgive yourself, that's what happens. You become perfect, you become whole, and you become complete. And when I say perfect, I mean, I'm not talking about like you're a perfect person, but you are able to embrace love again. Because when you have your guard up and you're thinking this and you're thinking that, and you've got remnants of like that old relationship coming in, you know what I mean? you can't fully be who you are when you got your guard up and you're thinking all these negative things. It just doesn't work that way. And so the first thing that I would say, the first step would be to separate from what happened to what's happening. And for me, my advice to anyone that I work with, women, men, or whatever, especially when it comes to a relationship, is concerned is you need to sit down. And when I say you need to sit down, that means that you need to be by yourself. You need to come to grips with whatever feelings and emotions and situations that took place in that relationship before you start giving someone half of you, a quarter of you, or whatever the case may be, calling it a relationship. You're not fully there. Does that make sense? You're not fully there, so you're not really giving of yourself the way that you would in a relationship with a healthy person, right? Because you're not mentally healthy until you forgive and move through that and figure out, what went wrong, blah, 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 whatever, okay? So that would be the first thing. My suggestion as far as forgiveness is concerned is to start to practice constant forgiveness. Constant forgiveness, meaning my pastor used to say this all the time. Like, when you say something or you do something and you don't like it or you don't want to bring it into your life, because let me digress for a second. A lot of times we are saying things and doing things that we don't want to bring into our life. That's karma, right? The karma that comes into your life when you do something to someone else is probably going to come back to you. It's kind of sort of like a law, right? You get out what you get what you put out. All of those statements and sayings and even scriptures, right? And so constant forgiveness. Where was I going with this? Okay, so the karma, right? So when you are just out and about, whether you're talking on the phone or doing something or whatever, being cognizant and being forgiving of yourself means that, let's just say you say something wrong, right? Let's just say you may have raised your voice and gotten into some sort of conversation with someone that wasn't the best. You know what I mean? You didn't say the greatest things or whatever. And so you just say, cancel that, right? You don't want to bring anything to you that you don't, you don't want to do anything to anyone or say anything to anyone that you don't want to come back to you, because it's almost it's coming back, right? Unless you say something or you do something to cancel it. So that's basically what I was talking about. So when it comes to forgiveness, you just want to constantly forgive yourself. Canceling it out is not necessarily forgiveness, but it's keeping the karma from coming back to you, basically. But also, when we're talking about forgiveness, just simply saying, just like you say, cancel it, just simply saying, God, forgive me for that. Or, oh, cancel that, God. I don't want that to come back to me, right? And constantly forgiving yourself for feelings, emotions, actions, and things that you do that you weren't aware of before, but now that you're paying more attention because you want to forgive yourself for everything, for the things you say, for the things you do, for even for thinking certain things, right? Until you get to the point where you don't have to do that anymore. Does that make sense? And so, oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at my notes on my computer, so excuse me. So yeah, so we don't want to bring anything back to us, right? So we want to take time to bring love in and keep all of that other stuff out, right? We want to keep all of that other stuff out. So practicing the art of forgiving practicing the art of forgiving yourself and practicing the art of forgiving the other person involved. This is the way you invite love in. And love is something that we are absent from when we haven't forgiven ourselves, right? Because I don't really want to concentrate on the other person, even though I'm going to get to that. I really want to concentrate on us, right? On you, and how you are going to purposely set out to go through the motions, deal with whatever it is that's going on or what has taken place, and make sure that you are constantly allowing for that godliness to come in. God sees you as perfect, whole, and complete, and that's what you want to be, right? So in order for you to get back to that, you don't want to do anything that's going to bring anything to you, which is where the constant forgiveness comes in, so that you don't bring any karma to you, right? And so the next one is taking time, and this is the action part, this is the homework, taking time to practice deep forgiveness of self. And so my first suggestion in practicing deep forgiveness of self is writing a forgiveness letter. Writing a forgiveness letter to yourself. And this kind of sort of goes back to, I don't know what video I made, but I made a video a while ago talking about gratitude journals, but I also was talking about dump journals. And the forgiveness letter to me kind of coincides. So one of the things that I always suggest to my clients, especially when they're moving through something, is to have a separate journal from their gratitude journal or just their regular journal every day, that they can just dump everything in there, right? Dumping what's going on, who said what, my boss did this, my son, my mama, my boyfriend, my husband, all that. Like, you can just, because there is something so special and so necessary for us to get our feelings out, and there's no better way than to get it out on paper, taking pen to paper and writing it out. And the forgiveness letter is the same thing. Whatever that situation was, write it out. And write it out to where you are being gentle with yourself, where you are forgiving yourself, where you are writing out exactly what happened. I forgive you for this. I didn't mean to do this, blah, 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 right? Whatever it is. And writing a forgiveness letter, if there's another person involved, writing a forgiveness letter to that person is imperative. It is life-changing, and it is so healing. And it's not a letter that you need to deliver, that you need to put in the mail, or whatever the case may be. It is the practice. It is the practice that is the deep forgiveness. It is the practice that is the deep forgiveness. When you are actually moving through, thinking about what happened, writing it down on paper, and it doesn't have to be perfect. For example, if you've gone through something really, really heartbreaking, writing it down one time may not be good enough for you. You might have to do the dump journal thing until you can get to the point where you can write that letter. Because the more that you write these forgiveness letters, and I'm not saying that you only have to write one, because one might not be enough, just like I said with the jump journal. But the more that you do this, the more that your shoulders will go down, right? The more that your heart will open, the more that you might cry, or the more you might think about the things that took place and how they could be better, right? Not then, but now, right? How they can be better, how you can be better, how you can love yourself more, how you can protect yourself, how you can speak to yourself and handle yourself, and forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Now, if we're talking about something that requires a therapist, then that's what you need to do. We're not talking about those type of situations, honestly. I am a mentor and coach, and there are certain things that I don't qualify to speak on. And so if we're talking about something so harsh and so like it's unbearable, like it's not something that you can actually do these exercises with, it's not helpful for you, then that means, well, that means, but it might mean that you might need to seek professional help. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with seeing a therapist. Absolutely nothing wrong. Personally, and I said this in the description, I believe that we should all have a mentor, coach, and a therapist. We all have things that we have to deal with in this thing called life. So there's nothing wrong with it. But writing your forgiveness letter to the person that was the other person that was involved may be necessary for you. And if you want to, at the end, you can rip it up, you can burn it, you can do whatever, you can flush it down the toilet, whatever it is that you want to do with it. But it is the practice that is healing. It is the practice that is going to set you free. It is the practice. It is the self-love, self-improvement, self-care practice of doing these things so that you can eventually operate from a place of love. Because that's really what we want to get back to, right? We want to be healed and whole so that we can operate from a place of love, because that's where we need to get back to. That's where we need to operate from. And a lot of us are operating from an empty vessel, but we want these grand and great things to happen, or we want someone to deal with our stuff. And honestly, it's not always fair for that other person that has absolutely nothing to do with what happened to you in the past to deal with your stuff. It is for us to deal with our stuff, and then in a healthy way go out and start a new relationship, or whatever the case, whatever it is, relationship, whether it's family, however. But a lot of times we believe that because someone did something to us that it's their responsibility, but what we don't realize is that person has gone on about their business, and a lot of times they're not even really thinking about you, but you have carried them on for years and years and years and years and have never dealt with the situation, and it is old at this point. And I'm not saying that we're being insensitive to the things that we've gone through, because we're not. But what it is that we have to do, if we want to be happy, if we want to have love in our life, if we want to just love ourselves, forget the other people, if we just simply just want to love ourselves, we have to do the work. And so I just wanted to express this, because this is something that I feel like a lot of us need to know. This definitely is part of a lot of things that I've done. This is one thing of a lot of things that I've done to get to the point where I can deal with my daughter's death on a whole nother level and find happiness and find love and find, peace again around her death, and just around being able to smile again. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to share that with you. I really hope that something that I said today was healing or hopeful or helpful. And if it was, please, please, please leave me a comment in the comments. Like this video and share it with someone. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you so much for listening to me. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.